For starters, I was given a few pieces of thin birch wood to see what I could come up with when building the Weasley Wizard window. So watch how I transform them into this project. Let's get started. Take the first 2 foot by 4 foot 1/4 inch birch plywood piece and find the center. Now take a scrap piece of wood and measure out 1 foot and drill a hole on both ends of your marks. With a small brad, place it through one of your holes, and with a mechanical pencil, place it in the other hole. Now, holding the brad in place, trace out your arch. Now cut out your arch. After you cut your first arch out, you can use that one for a template, and then cut the remaining 3. You will need a total of 4 arches. Take a 1/2 inch ply sheet and measure out 2 feet. This should be the same width as your arches. If your arches are a bit smaller or bigger, make sure this mark matches. Now grab any straight board and clamp it into place after aligning the line with your circular saw blade. Most people pay big money for track saws. Here, I show you how to do it for free. We know this window is going to be 5 feet high, and our original ply sheet is only 4 feet high, so we are going to take this piece we cut off and add it to the top. So just lay it flush and draw out your line from the underside. Now just cut your line. You're probably thinking, why not just buy a full-size ply sheet and cut it to the exact size? Well, I am trying to use leftover wood from other projects to save money. So I am going to use biscuits to join the 2 pieces together. You can skip all these steps if you have a larger ply sheet. So, lay your boards together and draw your lines across so your biscuit cuts will be even with each board. Then, using wood glue and your biscuits, bring the boards together. I am going to make each shelf 6 inches high. So I want each shelf to be balanced. I subtract 3 inches from the top to allow me a little bit of a lip on top to figure out how later I am going to attach the upper part of Mr. Weasley's head. So starting flush with the bottom and 3 inches from the top, I make my marks by finding the center. Okay, from your center mark, measure up 3 inches. This will allow your center shelf to be even with the top and the bottom shelf because they will have 6-inch faces. Take your first arch and place it on your line. Then, with a pencil, make a mark on the opposite side of the arch to give you the width of the base of the arch. We are going to cut this. Set your blade depth just shy of 3/16. Then lock your blade in place. Okay, here I get to teach you a John's DIY hack. Take a look at how much more you need to cut in order to achieve your width after you cut your first pass. Place a mark on the straight edge with a pencil, and then take a hammer and tap it over until the width you need is the same as the width between the pencil mark and your straight edge. If this takes more than 1 pass, no worries, take your time, but you can get this to perfection just by looking at it. We will repeat this 3 times. Now, if your arches do not stand up on their own because you cut a little too wide, don't worry about it. We will be gluing these in place, and the lip of the cut is what we really are trying to achieve. This will allow the ply sheet to support the base of the shelf. Your next step is to simply place a bead of glue into the groove and then push in your arch. Use a square to make sure they are 90 degrees before you allow them to set in place and dry. Find 2 2x4s that are more than 2 feet long. You will need to rip them in half and then cut each rip into sections of 3. They should be 1 inch wide. This will give you 12 pieces. You really only need 8, but this will give you some leeway if some are bowed or knotted. Take one of your pieces and lay it across the top of the arch and make your mark on the piece from the underside with a pencil. Now cut your mark. You can cut all 4 pieces at once or 2 at a time like I did here, but these 4 pieces need to be exactly the same length. Find the center of your board. Use a square and a straight edge to find the center of your arch. Make your mark, then measure out 3 inches in each direction from your mark to give you a 6-inch width for your first set of window panes. Take your first piece and put a little glue on each end of it, and then put it in place. With a nail gun, tack it into position. Repeat this process for the remaining pieces until all 4 are in place. For your lower pieces, flip the window upside down and align the pieces with the ones below. You don't need to make marks on this one. Just make sure your base pieces align with the ones in place already. And then use a square to ensure your pieces are vertical, straight up and down. Don't trust your eyes. The curve of the arch will play tricks on you. Trust the square. And once in place, just tack it in from the top. Once your pieces are in place, put a clamp on side of one and tack into place. The brad will be at an angle and penetrate the lower piece, so make sure the clamp is snug on both to keep it from sliding. Repeat this step with all pieces. To take the weight off the bottom shelf, I am going to build a simple triangle for the base to support the base of the entire window. Measure from a corner to the top of the arch and cut 2 2x4s to that length. Cut 45-degree angles on both of those pieces and then join them together. Finish the triangle by cutting a bottom piece and screwing it into the top. Okay, yes, I make this up as I go along, so it will be a lot easier if you do not attach the bottom arch just yet. Let me show you why. The reason I did this is because I wanted the bottom of the arch to be flush with the bottom of the ply sheet for an even balanced window. But you could easily put one tack in it just to hold it in place while you're trying to get the triangle into position. Using a straight edge, make sure that your triangle and arch are flush with the bottom of the window. Then slide it over a bit and place a tack through the back side just to hold it in place so you can flip the window over without the triangle moving. Drill through the back side of the window through your triangle. Make one hole in the center and the others 4 to 5 inches away from the center hole. Don't drill too close to the edge. Now, take 3 carriage bolts and place them through each of your backside holes. Use wide washers on both sides. Flip the window back over and then screw down your bolts. This is why I recommended to simply tack on the bottom piece. Here, you could have pulled it off and then it would have made screwing down the nuts so much easier without the back panel in the way. But here I manage. It just took a ratchet style wrench. Here you can also see why you should not place your holes too close to the edge. It would make it much more difficult to get your nuts and washers on the bolts if they extended into the other side of the triangle. You can now stand your window up and see how your base supports it. Going back to scraps, I grabbed some leftover countertop laminate that I used to build a desk. Man, do I throw anything away? I already know that each arch face is going to be 6 inches wide, so I set my fence and I cut all my strips to fit each arch. I will need 3 pieces. Lay your first piece into place. Align one end flush with the edge and bend it around the arch. Then, with a pencil, mark the other end on the back side from underneath. Place a bead of caulk around the arch and then lay in your piece. Tack down each end into the side of the plywood and use clamps to hold it in place until the caulk sets. This next step is complete overkill, so I will run through it quick. The owner wanted a little bit of flare at the bottom arch, so I took some leftover PVC boards from another project and cut them thin so they would bend. Then I simply caulked and tacked them into place. At this point, the overall window was done and it needed to be painted. But the weather outside was crappy, so that will have to wait until tomorrow. So the next step is to start on Mr. Weasley himself. I am going to just take some measurements of the inside of the window and then sketch out Mr. Weasley. My measurements are so the arm makes it out of the window while allowing his torso to remain centered. Since this is going to be difficult to fit inside the window, I will make it into 2 pieces and then join them like a hinge with tape to allow me to place him snug inside the window. So let's just sketch him out real quick, and then we'll do a quick cut and start dressing him up. So in order for his head to align with his neck and his upper arm to align with his lower arm, take the piece you just cut out and lay it on the next piece of birch. Make your marks so when you draw his upper portion, he will stay in alignment with the lower portion. Now, while looking at a picture online of this at Universal Studio, I saw that the storefront had him lifting his hat to reveal a rabbit and then lowering, and voila, the rabbit was gone. So you can choose at what stage you want to make him and his hat. I have opted for the rabbit to be showing just because I think it's more magical. So let's sketch him out, and as you can see, I am using a printout of what he looks like as a guide. I have actually never seen this in real life. After you're done with the sketch, take him to the cutting board and cut him out. Take your time and don't forget to use a drill bit in corners that will be hard for your jigsaw to make a proper turn. This next step is so you will not see the lip on the top of the shelf. I am going to reduce it so it's less than noticeable, but I will leave the area behind Mr. Weasley's neck in place to give that upper portion a little more support. You will need to flip the window over to make your cut, so once you get your lines all drawn out, you will need to retrace them on the back side. I am going to have it taper off and even with the edge of the top shelf. So once you cut one side, you can use the piece you just cut off as a template for the other side. This way, both sides will be perfectly evenly matched. So the next day the sun came out, so I took the window outside to begin painting. Don't waste too much paint on the area where you know Mr. Weasley will be covering. And you should be able to do this with one can of spray paint. I took a little bit of brown paint and painted Mr. Weasley's hat while I was at it. Okay, big choice for you here. You can take the time and paint Mr. Weasley's clothes on like I have seen in other do-it-yourselfs. But for me, I thought it would be really cool to cut out his outfit and shape it and just glue it down. For the rabbit, I used some leftover jewelry velvet from a watch display case I made. Let me just say, I used any bit of scrap pieces I had lying around from shadow boxes and other projects. And then I ordered a yard of printed material that matched his jacket and pants. And I ordered another piece that matched his green vest. This is not real fabric, it's just cheap printed material, but I will attempt to give it life. I am not saying that you have to do this, but the owner was really thrilled when she saw the quality of it all. At times, I just stapled some rags under the cloth to give it more depth and to keep it from looking flat and stiff. Okay, I make this up as I go along. So I did do a little painting when it came to his face and hands, because I just couldn't see putting any kind of fabric on there. But that was going to be the extent of it. I hate painting, and I will avoid it if I can. So I am sure there are many of you out there that will critique this portion of the video and tell me how you could have done it so much better. But that's the idea. This is a do-it-yourself. So I want you to take my ideas and make them better. But that was still fun to attempt this. When it came to the rabbit, you obviously cannot put paint on the velvet. So I just took a Sharpie and traced out all his features to ensure people knew it was still a rabbit. Okay, back to wood. Take the scrap piece you cut off from the back of the window. This will be the exact width you need to mount his head in place. Take a thin piece of scrap wood also and glue the two pieces together. Clamp down until the glue dries. Once the glue is dry, you can cut off the round end to make the two pieces uniformed. Then, on the side of the ply sheet, place more wood glue. Holding Mr. Weasley's head into position, take the glued piece and clamp into position. Now we can cut Mr. Weasley's legs. Take your measurements from inside the window so you have the length of the legs, and cut 2 strips at that length. And then the width anywhere from 4 to 6 inches. I think I just set the fence at a random width that I thought was wide enough to look like legs, and then I cut the 2 pieces. Before you move on, make sure they fit. If you think they look too wide, then go ahead and trim them up a bit. I think I took off another inch after looking at them in the window. Now we need to cut the rest of Mr. Weasley's torso. Just align with the upper portion of his body, make some marks, and then cut to fit. You will need 2 pieces here to ensure you can bend and fit the body inside once we finish dressing him. Okay, back to Mr. Weasley's outfit. Starting with the legs, and then we will move on to the more detailed vest and jacket. As you can see, I place rags underneath the fabric to give him a more rounded look. Like I said before, you can do this in a number of ways, so let me speed through this to show you how I used my 2 patterns of printed fabric. The first thing you need to do to the torso is take some duct tape and join the upper and lower pieces together. Then we can begin dressing him. Just start with the lower level, i.e. the vest, and build your way up. Everything will have to overlap, so do the undersides first. As you can see as I'm going along, I should have actually put down the pants first before I did the vest. And then the arms, because the arms will stick out beyond the vest. So it would have been easier to do those first. But the vest isn't completely stapled down, so I managed to get sides of each pants and arms before I began. Then I can cover the vest with the jacket. All I do is I'm really just shaping this. It's not really fabric. It's kind of printed on some material that is kind of like fabric. So I just keep pushing it around, shaping it, and stapling it into position until I get the look or effect that I'm looking for. So when you're doing the arm on the upper portion, don't forget your rag to give his arm a little volume, and also leave it extended. You don't know how much you'll need to overlap or which ones look better when you overlap it. So leave both of them to extend beyond the end of the arm, and then you can make that decision when you're joining them together. After everything is in place on the front side, you can just go around on the back side and staple everything down. So that's it, a little bit of fabric and a little bit of felt, and then I've dressed up Mr. Weasley. When I glanced back at my reference picture, I realized that I had one more finishing touch, and that was Mr. Weasley's vest pocket. Now where the duct tape is joined to the torso, you can fold that up and still fit Mr. Weasley's torso into the window. Now place his head back in position, use the extra fabric, trim it, tuck it under, and duct tape the backside. And then you're all done. So all we have left is the letters on the front of the box, and now you can either paint these on or you can use a vinyl cutter like I'm going to do. I have seen a few of these out there, and I think this one is a bit stronger than your cardboard builds. But this is extremely durable and, believe it or not, exceptionally light. This window is a fraction of the weight of the Honeydukes window I built last year. So for just making it up as I went along, how do you think I did? I would love to hear your comments below. I can't wait to see what collectible items she puts on the shelves. As always, thanks for watching. Hit that thumbs up, and if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe.